Hey peeps, I'm Michelle.
Hey everyone, I'm Natalie.
Hey, what up? It's Faith.
Hey, Sydney.
Hey, it's Kat.
It's Bria.
Hey, it's Lori.
Hi everyone, it's Karina.
And this is the Red Lips and Mic Drops podcast.
Red lips and mic drops, thick hips and lip gloss. I'm talking issues and our thoughts. The world's unfair, so let's talk.
To say that, to make those assumptions is like...
Well, I think the whole thing and this goes back to people being shamed for the size of their family. Social media, okay, we've seen it for celebrities from the beginning of time. People idolize them and then they put all of their own worth into like a celebrity. And if a celebrity disappoints them, they can't handle their life.
Kim and Kanye are getting divorced.
Oh my God, the end of the world. It's
The end of the world.
Oh my God.
So when now social media has now created that for like people now no longer take responsibility for their own feelings. They want to put their feelings onto somebody else. So you didn't disappoint that person. How she was feeling from what you said was the disappointment, but she doesn't see that. She wants to blame you for feeling that way.
Oh,
Well,
absolutely.
here's another thing too, is that when they're upset with you, when they're shaming you, when they're don't like whatever it is you had to say and they're voicing all this stuff, they're actually giving you all of their power and control over them. And so like people, don't give your power away. Don't give your control to someone else you don't even freaking know. Like hold on to that shit and
If I don't like
cultivate it or something. I don't know.
Well, yeah. I
You
mean,
what? What was that?
But if I don't like something, I just use my power to scroll.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can pick and choose what you see on social media. That's the beauty of it, right? Like
You pick and choose
make it
what you
positive
engage
space,
with.
yes, and you can make it as positive a space as you want, right?
Yes.
Like,
And I mean, I grew up with a
control
dad that says that to me all the time because I went through some pretty tough heartaches. And he's like, Natalie, that person only has control over you if you let them,
Right.
over your emotions. And I hated him when he said that. I would be like, you don't understand, right? I hated him for it. But now I'm happy he said those things to me because even coming into 2021, I was allowing certain situations to still have power over me. And we're human. As long as we can recognize it, then we can check ourselves. I posted something the other day. I had people coming for me to try to make themselves feel better. I chose to just remove the post for now to protect my own energy. But I didn't blame those people for how I was feeling. I just decided within myself, this isn't the right feeling for me to have right now. So I then go back at them and tell them how wrong they were and react to them. It's the response, the reaction versus the response. And people now are shaming people for anything and everything, right?
Well,
Like
and like
You can do nothing right in this world right now, today.
Right.
well, and
Nothing.
the social media thing was hard for me when it first like I remember my brother. I'll never forget because he was in college and he goes, "Oh my gosh, there's this new thing. It's called the Facebook." It was still the Facebook because he's 7 years older. So I was like, "What's that?" And he's like, "People rate one another," and I'm like, "Oh my God, that's ridiculous." I was so little, and I remember like when I was in college, Instagram was a big thing. Like it was like just out, and it was like, "Oh my God, big thing." And I've always had this pressure to have people like you. Like my parents were like, doesn't matter. Don't burn the bridge. You need to be liked, right? Like everybody
That
needs to
reminds
be
me of
happy
that-
with you. Yes.
that
Make
country
everybody
song.
happy. Yeah. And it's hard. That's so hard on social media. Like this podcast is making me feel better about just saying my shit
people
and
are not
owning
gonna
it and not caring, like not putting so much emphasis. Like I remember my therapist was like, well, because I told her, I was like, well, I just have to not care what people think. And she said, well, it's like an innate human thing to care what people think. A lot of us care, like even if we say like, I don't give a shit, I don't care. Like a lot of us do actually care deep down, but it's like the weight that we put on it and the reaction that we have inside and like on the exterior too, when engaging with those people. But that was really hard for me. Like Faith, I know, but like, and a lot of us know this, it's like a really important thing to be like, liked and make sure not even liked, but just make sure you keep the peace. And I remember my one girlfriend, I had to do this exercise in one of these programs I took because we take a lot of programs in the coaching world, right? And we had to ask our friends and our families, like, what our weaknesses are and our strength. Like, Natalie, you did this with me the other day, and I love that. I had to ask what my weaknesses were. And my one girlfriend, I'm calling you out, Trista, if you're listening to this, she goes, you just want everyone to be happy. Like, you just want everything kumbaya. And like, that's your weakness. Cause like, that's not how the world works. And I was like, shit, Trista, that sucks, but it's true. It's true. And she hit the nail on the head with that. Cause there's a point where you just have to own your shit and be okay with it. Like, just be okay with it.
My thing is, if you lose people in your life because of being your authentic self, then
They weren't meant to be there anyway.
Then
it's your own parents. Let's say it like
that. I mean, it's hurtful and it's painful, and you're allowed to feel that grief and that pain. But I've lost so many people in my life for being who I truly am, for whatever those reasons are. We don't have to get into, but people. If you want to have your own family and the size of your own family and whatever that looks to you, and you lose people in your life because of that, or you get shamed, then that's probably the universe's way of telling you those people aren't supposed to be in your life anymore.
Absolutely.
So, and it's painful and hurtful, and I'm not taking away from that, but it's all about evolving yourself, and that's a daily conscious decision, right? We all have to evolve ourselves on a daily basis. And if you choose to succumb to other people's opinions, someone's always going to have an opinion. It doesn't matter. You could, like I said, I put in a post the other day, you could do literally every single thing correct, and somebody would still find something wrong, right? So
like we were saying about this podcast, we're all white women. And if we're going to have to do our due diligence in bringing people on of different ethnicities so that we can talk and have these educational experiences with them. But like, even so, people are going to be out there saying this was an afterthought for you, or you didn't care enough about this to put it in the front. It doesn't matter. Even if you had someone on, they're going to say, oh, they're just bringing some token person. Like, it doesn't. And this isn't the way, like, by the way, guys, whoever's listening to this, I know we're recording this now, but whoever in the future is listening to this, like, we didn't plan it this way. I don't think we ever actually addressed this, but this podcast was not like, this was just a project that came together. I posted that I was looking for a co-host for a podcast, and you beautiful women stepped forward, and I was like, why don't we just make it like this mass thing? And I have people on my friends feed of all different walks of life, all different ethnicities, and this is the group we have. This is who commented, who wanted to put themselves out there and wanted to do a podcast, and that's where we are. So that's how this was put together. Just in case people are wondering, like, this was hopefully one day we'll be able to meet in person. That would be amazing. Let's go to Canada. Lori, let's tear it up.
You guys aren't allowed in my country right now.
Oh my God. I can't.
We can play telephone across the border though.
Yeah.
On the string.
I love
it. It's this is not something I ever in my life. I mean, I told you all, I don't like the camera. I hate the camera. This is like so out of my comfort zone. And Kat, I remember when Kat posted that, I was like, she's like, you should do, she like was like, this would be good for you. You should do it. You'd be great. And I'm like, I wouldn't. No. So it's, for anyone to get out of their comfort zone, if we're going to shame them for that, then that's something within ourselves, that we have to look at. And so a lot of shame is because of somebody going against your own comfort zone of your own stuff, whether it's your beliefs or whatever. If somebody wants to have a blended family and a biracial family like Michelle, and then a blended family like Faith, like and that will make other people uncomfortable, and therefore their opinion comes from that, and their shame comes from their own uncomfortableness.
Oh yeah.
Can I bring up something else again?
Yeah.
So even with all the shame and stuff, like with having the children, or like people are coming at you and shaming you, but what about the shame that you're bringing on yourself, like your own thoughts, your own feelings, because those words are impacting you at a deeper level that you don't even realize. Yeah. So like for me, it was like with the children, or like with when I had my first son, I was super young, and it was, okay, am I a bad person? Did I do something wrong? It wasn't necessarily what people were saying, but it was just the things that I was thinking within myself, like bringing up my own shame that I had. I'm like, oh my God, I just let everybody in my family down, which is a shame, like around you and stuff.
Yes.
But stuff that may not have been talked about, but you're just internalizing it yourself. Like, you're pulling those feelings out from whatever is around you, and doing that as well, because I felt like I was a failure. I felt like I let everyone down because no one else in my class had a child. I was now that pregnant person in high school that had to walk around.
That was
You know,
so hard
and
in
that
my
was me.
That was
But
so
no one
hard in
said
my high
anything.
school. Yeah. And Faith,
Don't
the
say
thing
anything.
is, like, in my high school, the sad part is people did say so. My aunt was the high school nurse, by the way. And so one time I was in the office and she's like, "Hey, Kat, just can you leave right now?" Because I was just popping in to say hi. And she's like, people thought I was so weird. They're like, "Oh, okay, cool. Your aunt's she's a bitch." Like, they would call my aunt a bitch because when she wouldn't let them go home because they were faking
Yeah.
sick. Like, and she was very, like, she saw like right through them. And she's like, "You're staying in school." Like, sorry. Sorry. So they were like, "Your aunt's a bitch." But anyway, I would go into her office and I'd be like, "Hey, auntie." And she's like, "Can you just, Sarah's in here. She's pumping," because like some of the girls got pregnant and whatever. Like, I was like, "Oh yeah, absolutely." And I thought it was like, "Can I stay and watch?" Like, not to be weird, but I thought it was fascinating. That is the weirdest thing I've ever said, by the way. So, but I was so young and I'm like curious and I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting." And she's like, "No, you have to go." I'm like, "Okay." So, but anyway, people would anybody who got pregnant in high school, we came from like 165 people. This is my hometown. Everybody. And Keith's like, "I didn't have a high school like that. Like, I don't understand what you're saying." And there was a
But I
lot of
think
trauma.
Guys do it differently though too. Guys are not, I mean, they don't
That's
get
true.
that shame at all because they can't have children. So they don't ever get that shame. I mean, even if they're a young father, I don't think that they still get that shame as a young woman being pregnant in high school or whatever that case may be.
And
Right.
depending on the era that you were in and pregnant in high school,
Right.
there were a lot of variables, because my mom is a teen mom and she was pregnant obviously in the 70s. She had to leave school or go
Yep.
to continuation school.
An alternative
She
school.
wasn't a bad kid, but they didn't have a place for pregnant girls. They weren't allowed to be in school.
Yeah.
And then I was in high school in the early 90s where they had kind of a school for pregnant girls where at
Yep.
a particular point they can go to the high school until they started showing, and then they would bus them over to a campus all their own.
So
Where
it's
they
not,
could-
I wouldn't think it was like a verbal shaming on those, but it's like a societal shaming.
Yeah, that's a
at that
shame.
point.
Yeah.
Sure. Like, you're knocked up. You need to get out of here. Like, you
Yeah.
have your
Yeah,
privilege
it's like you're going to
gone now.
contaminate
Like,
the rest of the ladies. Like,
But the
you're-
guys got to stay.
yeah, absolutely.
of course, I can't. I really can't. Don't
Yeah.
even get me started. Now I'm just gonna be mad at Keith for no reason.
I had a friend that found out later in her life, and it's her story, so I'm not going to say names or anything, that her aunt was really her mother.
Mm.
Mhm.
And it was the
Yep.
sister of her mother. But her mother raised her, and the aunt
Right.
lived next door.
There's a lot of that
And
because
no
it was
one-
looked down upon.
Right. And yet no one blamed the dad.
No.
No. And then when you have kids, oh my God, what a great dad. What a great dad you are. It's like the mother's slaving away with her. Like if you had a child in that way, like you birthed a child, the dad's like, they're like, oh my God, what a super dad. He went to the grocery store.
Right. Well,
parent.
it's the whole like, but her dad had an affair with the mother's sister and created her. And then the mother ended up raising her as hers because they had another sibling. She had another sibling. She found this all out later in life. But what I'm saying is nowhere in that, when she was telling us, I'm like, your dad cheated on your mom and created you with her sister. Why isn't he the one taking the flack? Like, I don't understand this. And she's like, oh, what do you mean? Oh, like,
Yeah. I didn't think of this.
What in the Mad Men? I can't. Like, what the hell? I
that's-
can't. I really, like,
that old school shaming and culture, like whatever culture society they came from, like the dad might have had an affair, but you don't speak of it, you hide it, you don't, you know, whatever it might be. Or even if he did, he's allowed to do that because he was the breadwinner, whatever.
Being a man.
that is so shitty. I hate
Yeah.
it. I hate that so. I'm getting angry. Like, I can't handle this. I can't. That's a trigger that I have a hard time keeping
Right,
my cool over.
Yeah, she
because-
sends me angry texts late at night on Mad Men, and I'm like, stop watching it.
Right?
She's like, I told you not to watch this.
Throwing salt in her own wound, and I'm like, "Can you just stop?"
Yes, because I came from like the abusive relationship, and I really shouldn't be watching this because
No.
it does trigger because the way that they talk.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's so narcissistic. It is like disgusting. And I'm like, that is exactly what I went through. Exactly. And then
Yeah.
that we just watched one last night and she's like, you had an affair. Like, I know you did. And he's just like, what are you talking about? You're crazy. Like just gaslighting her. She's like, I know. Like they told me. And what does he do? She goes, so-and-so told me, whatever the guy's name is, Jimmy or whatever. I don't know. I don't even remember because I was so livid. And what does he do? The husband? He goes and beats the shit out of the guy who said, I'm in case like, yeah, that guy's a loser. I'm like, no, he's not. He was, you're such an idiot. I shouldn't say idiot. My therapist, like when I've called Keith an idiot and I've called him that before. And she's like, we don't name call. I'm like, oh shit. Like that's why, this is why having a therapist is good. Cause she's like, no, we don't name call. I'm like, oh, like, oops.
Can I give him a nickname of asshole? No.
Yeah, I was like, okay, fucker.
Right. It's just his nickname. We do
I'm kidding.
things to each
That's
other.
horrible. I mean, really, but it was
Ben, he's gonna have to listen to all of this.
I know.
Keith. I love
We
you.
love you.
No, I really do. I really do. He's amazing. And it's just, he just doesn't like, they're men, like they're guys. They don't get like they don't dive deep into this world of female. I mean, they're not raised like that. Like
Well,
Keith's dad is 83.
Say all of them. We can't say
Yes.
all of them because some
No,
of them.
not all.
No,
Yeah.
some of them do. Some of them do. That's not
Some
true.
of-
That's
we
that's
can't-
yeah,
yeah.
you're exactly right. But like Keith's dad is 83, for example. So when we're watching this Mad Men thing, he's like, my dad was like 24, like in this time period. Like he was at that age. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's wild. But
I mean,
he is not like that at all. Like I'm shocked in all actuality. Like he is not at all like that, which is thank God. Because,
But I mean, people come from different cultures and backgrounds. There was a time where women going to even college from a male perspective was like deemed absolutely unnecessary because you were supposed to just go and have a family and take care of them. My grandfather on my dad's side did that to my aunt. She wanted to go to college and he shamed her for that because he was raised in he was born in the 20s. So it was, well, you're the woman, you're supposed to go have a family and the man goes to school. Your brother will go to school and, so and that's all evolved now. So it's the same with having and deciding on your own family. Families have evolved now. It's not just the picture perfect. You go get married and you have a child with your husband. I mean, families have evolved into there's adoption now. There is blended families. There is biracial families. In years
There's
ago,
families where the fathers stay home and raise the children. and the
yes,
moms
there's
are
stay-at-home
like,
dads.
oh,
Yes.
yeah.
My
Let me say
husband
this too,
stayed
because-
home with our kids while I was in school. So we also had that
Yeah.
structure of where like my father was very angry because he worked 10-hour days and didn't make much money. And here it is, my husband was able to stay home with our children while I went to school. And it was kind of like, oh, well, what do you do? And he actually was made fun of because he would cook and clean and do the laundry and take care of the kids while I was running off doing whatever.
Right.
Not realizing that he was kind of like holding down the family while I was bettering the family.
Yes.
But he did get a lot of flack from a lot of places
wow.
because he was the stay-at-home dad. So now it's like even deeper because now going to the cultural aspect.
Mm.
I'm white, he's black, he's at home. So now all of a sudden he's this lazy
He's a
black
deadbeat
guy
father.
on the couch,
Mhm.
Which is
right?
not true.
That's,
And it's
I mean,
not true. He worked so hard and he's a way better parent than I am. Way better parent. They got away good with me being at school.
this is so important to say because I was telling
Right.
Natalie the other night. Natalie, you're probably like, girl, get over your freaking shit, like the lady in Walgreens. I was like, I can't because I was telling her, I'm like, why am I feeling this way? I feel so, and I'm being very vulnerable with you guys right now because like I was raised to believe my mother literally would sit me down and be like, all men are pigs. That exact line. All men are pigs. Your grandmother said it. I know it. I'm like, so when I was a little girl, that translated into adulthood real quick. So I have this really hard time removing that like thought process. And Natalie was trying to guide me the other night.
Well,
Like,
I mean, it was just
And I-
like, that's the
so
story you're telling yourself.
Yes.
If you keep
Right.
telling
Yes.
yourself the same story over and over, you
right.
believe it. And your mother told that story to herself, so she passed it to you.
Yeah.
And then now it's like, stop telling yourself that story, because the reality is that's a judgment, and that's a judgment, right? On all men are this way, just like the judgment of if you have children or you don't have children, if you have a blended family or don't, there's judgments on everything. But the reality is we sometimes give them to ourselves,
Right.
Yeah.
right? Like we give them to ourselves. So it's like, stop judging yourself because of limiting beliefs that were given to you that those people didn't know were limiting beliefs, right? That was not a thing back then. And then stop telling yourself the same story. When you become, it took me a long time, believe me, I'm not an expert at this, but when you become your story, that is all you'll ever be. So like,
Right.
I have a mother who was abused by an alcoholic father. So my mother is her story, and she has lived her entire life that way. And she very much does not understand that I'm not her story. And you're right. And so we've had many issues because of this. So
Yeah.
she's a victim forever. And
Yeah.
she'll be very upset with me saying this, but when you become your story, then that's, your story can help people learn who you are, but it doesn't define who you are.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
well, and the reason I was saying that is because Michelle was, you were saying he's such an amazing parent. And Keith, I know he holds the fort down. He cooks, he cleans, like there's no like gender role here. So I know how awesome, like I have it. I really, really do. It's kind of a miracle considering the people I've dated in the past. It's a very new experience for me, and I'm still adjusting from
It's so hard.
from old trauma. And
Very
I throw it onto him, and he's like, I'm not this person. Like, I'm not this character that you're painting me to be. I'm not getting drunk out in the streets and cheating on anybody. I'm not somebody who you need to lose trust in or mistrust. And and we have history too. Like, Keith's not perfect, that's for sure. And I'm not even going to go into this story. But that was it wasn't like anything crazy, but it was like a little teeny trigger. But for me, it was like the end of the world. Cause like I saw my past, and I'm like, oh my God, like this is how, but you cannot do that. And it's so much easier said than done.
Yeah, no, it is. You have to consciously look at it when you get those triggers. We all react when we shouldn't, but as long as we can then, okay, I reacted there. And then the next time it happens, take a step back, be like, this is a trigger for me. I need to respond, but I need to calm down first, or whatever it is. That's how you evolve yourself. But if you're not willing to do that, you're going to constantly be judging yourself, judging others, and then shaming others and shaming yourself.
Shaming. Yep.
So,
Shame. And then another thing, my mother, I'm just going to end with this. I know we're way over, but my mother would always say, oh, I know your father probably cheated on me at one point. Like, what? Like, why are you saying that? Like,
Well,
why
why is she sharing that with you?
Yeah.
right. Like, why is
what's
she
the value in
exactly?
that?
I mean, there is like we talk about like the families and like moms being your friend or moms being your parent. Like, where do you draw the line? And like, that can be a whole separate conversation, because I'm not a mom. I don't know. But that was Lori. That was like, I look back and I'm like, why did you tell me that? Because that really jacked me up, because now it's like, I see this man and I still have so much respect for my father too, but like, why did I need to hear about, like, go to somebody, like talk to somebody, heal yourself. Like, don't throw it on me, because now it's jacking up your child. Yeah.
My mother used to do that too. And I would just respond with like, sounds like you need to talk to somebody.
Michelle, that's exactly what my therapist told me to say. She was like, why don't you know all you need to say? And I'm like, what? Please tell me, because I don't know what to say. And she's like, it sounds like you need to talk to someone about that. And because she throws
my mom would get so pissed. I don't have to worry about that now because she doesn't talk to me, but
for the better.
she gets so pissed about it.
Yeah.
It's so funny, but yeah.
Do you think, Michelle, from a psychological standpoint, some parents, whether it's the father or the mother, they look at their children or child or whichever one as like theirs, and then they put their stuff on them because like, well, you should be here for me now too because I birthed you and you're mine. It's almost like a territorial thing. I mean, I don't know if I'm saying it right, but you know, I remember being, yeah, and it's almost like I know a lot of parents that put things on their children to make them feel better about themselves.
Sure.
So it's and again, it can just be how they were raised as well. But do you think it's some of it is like a psychological thing that can happen, especially if you're born into with a mother or a father who did feel insignificant, unseen and unheard their whole life. Now they have somebody that they can make like almost like their
ally.
Their ally. Yeah. They're like, well, if your dad does this to me, I think your dad's cheating on me, Kat, or I know he has. So if we do get divorced, you better be on my side, like kind of thing.
Yes.
Like kind of like, does that make sense? I don't know if I'm saying it correctly.
No, total sense. That happens all of the time. And then also that parents put into the child their missed expectations of themselves.
Yes.
Or it flips on the other side that they are upset. And that's where I think I had the conflict with my mother, is that I've become the things that she probably felt for herself. And she is so jealous of it.
Yeah, that's what Natalie, we always say that. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I went to therapy with my mother and she admitted that she has an inferiority complex to me.
What's that?
My mother would never go to therapy.
No. Because there's nothing wrong with them.
It's like the child's problem.
No, this was over another family issue that we were in there for too. And so, but it's eye-opening sometimes because I think what happens then is when it makes us feel bad too, when they are your parent and you're like, well, I don't want to feel that way about them.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I don't want to feel like bad about that. I don't want to feel that person is that way. But I always say it like this. I grew up very close to my Baksha, who is still 99 years old. And she is a very different person to me than she is to my mother, who is her daughter. Yeah. And I didn't know that growing up because you see people for how they are towards you, not who they are in the world. And then when I got older, I was like, oh.
Well, that was with my grandfathers because they were my best friends. And my aunts would be like, oh, you don't, like, my aunts and uncles would be like, you have no idea. And I'm like, like how, like they would hit me and they would do this. And I'm like, but to me, they were angels. They were my angels on earth, the saviors. It's just interesting.
One thing I have to say is you can never tell somebody, as much as you might know it, that they need healing.
Yeah.
like people, they'll look at you like you can F off 8 ways from Sunday, because in order for people to heal, they have to think that about themselves.
Yeah.
You could tell them to you're blue in the face and they will not, and people heal differently too. Right. So like, you might be like, well, if you just did this, you would heal. Like I was giving you stuff the other night to help you.
Oh my God.
But if I had gotten mad at you, I had gotten mad at you for not taking that and listening to it, then that I'm not helping you, right? It's just, you can give people tools to help them, but you can't make them become or do or be something,
right.
And so it's like, you look at all that and then you look at all this shame that people are putting on other people for any reason. And then what this topic was about, the size of your family. And it's like, we can only guide people to a better place or state within themselves. We can't make them do it, and we can't tell them they need to do it. If you tell anybody, let me say, you tell anybody they need healing, they're going to tell you where to go and how to get there times 100, because they're going to be like, how dare you judge me and say that I'm the one that needs to.
Well, and it's like, it's like the controlling thing, like try to control someone, they're going to push back. I mean, that's what happens.
Yeah.
Well,
So
yeah, also to like even bust out like the shame when you don't have parents. They're living, but you're not able to have parents because they're just not willing to not continue those same wounds. They're not willing to hear it. And then even for myself is like raising my children, they have little exposure to my parents because of that, and they've chose to be who they are, and that's okay. They have to live with those choices, but I also don't bring my children will go around them, and when they were younger they've stayed the night with them, but probably about my son, he's 17 now, 3 years old, 4 years old, probably is the last time he spent the night, and they were only able to go to my parents' house with me there. And so this is like something to speak on in the family unit as well, is because there is a lot of shame and guilt that's felt when you set a boundary for families and then they don't respond positively to your boundary. But the boundary is just for your own safety. It's not for them. And you have to live with the consequences of that boundary you set. And that then changes the relationship, or really just kind of like takes your rose-colored glasses off, and that you see the relationship for what it is. And that is something that I had someone mention that in my post as well, as to talk about what it's like to remove yourself from toxic families or parents.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? That's so true, Michelle, is like the setting of boundaries is the one thing that made me see everything. Like I was like, holy shit, like this is toxic as hell. Because my therapist, she goes, well, have you set, but like she literally straight out asked me, and I'm like, what is that? She's like, have you set boundaries with your mother? And I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean? And she's like, yeah, I mean, you need to set these boundaries. And I said, no, because she's going to get mad at me. She's going to get mad. She's going to get mad. I sounded like my little kid self. And she said, she is going to get mad. She absolutely is, but you don't have to react to it. And she's like, why do you feel the responsibility, you know, or you don't need to feel, she didn't say why, but you don't need to feel the responsibility or the burden of her reaction anymore. You're a grown woman. You have your own life. And I'm like, oh my God, it changed the game. Because then I started seeing her as somebody who needed healing too. Because I always thought I was in the wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
I was shamed. Yep.
Right.
So
But setting the boundaries too, when you, and we all know, when you set a boundary, right, with anybody, they're going, and they don't like it, they are going to do everything they can to resist that boundary, make you feel bad about it, right, and the whole 9 yards. But when I finally started setting certain boundaries because of a certain situation within my family that would take too long to get into, I had a hard time in my own therapy with the fact that I even had to set that boundary. I don't know if that makes sense. And I was more resentful and upset with my parents that they put me in that situation.
Yes.
And I was so angry. And then it's so funny. And they were mad at my boundary, but they were like, whatever, that's your choice, right? Whatever, that's your choice. And then it was like, but it has to be my choice because you're not doing anything about this situation, right? And once I started to heal myself and go through my own healing, and it started to kind of heal them too. And all of a sudden that boundary was no longer a big deal.
Well, and why did you feel like, why is this I felt like, why do I have to do this?
Oh,
I went through all, and it wasn't like I was playing, I was playing a little bit of a victim, but I felt like resentful that I had to do this. Like, why do I have to work on myself? Like, right?
You're a little resentful that we're all adults and they can't get their shit together.
Yeah, I was, but it wasn't even that. I was in a situation within the family that they were allowing to continue to go on, and I had to be like, well, this is unacceptable for me to be a part of. And instead of them being like, oh wow, I felt they were choosing that situation over me. And then they were like, well, you got to do what you got to do. And I was like, I have to do what I have to do because you put me in that situation, right? Like I was like, I was like
anger. Yes.
It was not a good few years there. And then eventually when I started to heal myself, believe it or not, that whole boundary and that whole situation kind of went away. And it wasn't even, the boundaries actually still there, but like the whole talk of it or the feel of it has gone away. Does that make sense? Because it's more calm now, because now you're coming against each other, right? And so it's more calm now within the family, because they know what I'm going to do, and they've accepted that. But I also healed myself within that situation, and it kind of helped them heal a little bit, if that makes sense. So, and then of course I was pissed that I had to be the one to heal everybody. I was like, oh, I have to heal all of you.
Right.
Yes. It feels like a burden. It's very, it like in that moment, I mean, I'm glad I did, but it is so much work. And then you feel like, even in relationships, like romantic relationships, why am I going to therapy? You know what I mean? Like sometimes I've had that with Keith, like, and it's not that Keith is like a bad person or like he needs to go to therapy today. It's just, that's his choice. That's his choice. But it's like, why do I go and try to work on myself? But the other, it's again, this is still like a taboo thing. It's still, I still feel like we are not completely there with talking about therapy and mental health. Like right, Michelle, like we're still not there. It's like now that I've been, and I just started going a couple of years ago, which to me was so late, but again, here we are. And never late, right? Not like better late than never in my eyes, but we're still not there. So
we're not, and we're taught as therapists to just be like kind of this blank slate, so that everything the client has comes to us and we resolve those issues. And I find problems with that too, because I share a lot of my experiences on social media and stuff like that, and even here, because it's all right that I grew up in an abused family and that I was abused as a child. I went and got my own help, and I'm a therapist. So I can still be a therapist and help you with your issues. And maybe I might even know your issues a little bit better, because it should happen to me too. And it's okay that I'm just not this bubble baby that was in a petri dish until I could get off to college and nothing freaking happened to me. But that's what we were taught in the old, like Freudian world, is that we're supposed to be these like, just blank markers for our clients. And like you mentioned, Kat, you asked your therapist a question, and we were taught you don't answer questions. You don't get into your own stuff. And sometimes my patients really appreciate that I can truly understand what they're going through, down to like the emotional feeling that is felt when you don't have a parent that's nurturing, or that you have a parent that's physically abusing you, or that you have, a parent that tells you, I'm not your parent, you're not my kid. Like, so these things that really should be talked about and normalized, that I feel depression, I feel anxiety, I feel all of the things every fucking other person feels, that we're just an extension, we're human. And until more of us can talk about that, it's going to be that way, I feel, because therapists sit on some sort of magical platform. And, the only difference between me and you guys is I got an education about it.
Yeah. And you know what? I asked my therapist one time, I said, are you okay? Because I'm loading so much on you. And she's like, Kat, you do not need to worry about me. I'm like, but I am like, I want to make sure that you're okay. And she's like, it's like, I felt so weird, but I was like,
therapist. And then we dump it on our therapist that go see a therapist. So we just passing the buck around. It's okay.
Yeah, I know. And I was like, oh my God, I hope Carolyn's okay. Cause I'm like probably really weighing her down right now. Like, oh my God. And she's like, it's okay. Like, this is your time to talk about what you need to. And she's like, I'm like, but she's like, I appreciate that though. I'm like, but for real. But she does answer the questions too, Michelle, which is why I like her. Cause she'll be like, this is like, here's what I went through. She'll give me examples of her friends or her. And I'm like, thank you. Cause like, I need that. Like, I need to know that, like a divorce, if you specialize in divorced people, right? Like if you've been divorced, that's probably really helpful. Or if you've done drugs and overcome like drug addiction, that's probably really helpful.
Sorry. Somebody would like to be on camera.
Oh my God. She's so sweet.
She's just very dramatic when I
How sweet.
Tell them all. So I'm very dramatic, but I'm very.
Oh my God. I love her face. I can't.
Yeah, look at her. The beard. Yeah.
They're healing too, the dogs. Like I feel this rush of like,
The dogs are like, do you know how much we need to like talk
God.
to a therapist because of all of you?
exactly. Like when
what you put on us.
Exactly. Like I was petting Betty yesterday and it released, I definitely, you know how they say like it releases something. I don't know if this is true with pets. I'm sure it is, but I literally feel my body relaxing. Like
Yes.
when I pet my dogs, it's like, oh,
It's the
like,
tactile, like repetitive.
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, it's
And
like,
then they're like, we feel all your anxiety things.
I know, I feel so bad. Oh my God.
It's this one. Can you say hi to everybody? Say
Hi,
hi.
sweetheart. You're so gorgeous.
This
and
is Zoe, and
beautiful.
she loves the camera.
She is so
She-
cute, Natalie. Oh my
yeah,
God.
she's-
Oh, we love her.
Thank you.
She's officially recruited
Oh,
Right?
the Red Lips and Mic Drops crew. Oh my God.
and for anyone that's going to come at me saying I just hurt her, I did not. She's dramatic when you pick her up. So I did not hit my dog or
And I also interrupted you, Natalie. I'm sorry.
I don't even know.
Say?
My big thing is like I don't even know where my train of thought was. You know, it's everyone's going to have an opinion about something. And
Yes.
everyone is going to have an opinion about what you're doing and what you're saying. People are going to come at us for all of this. And it's just how much weight we give those opinions that matter. And it's if you want to have a family of 15 children or the 19 kids and counting, that's your choice. And that's your right in life. I mean, unless you're living in a country like China where they mandate how many children you can have, that it here in America, that is your right. And so if anybody's shaming you or trying to make you feel bad about that, it's all about how much weight you're going to put on that person and how you're going to internalize that. And if that person is somebody that you trust and you value, then you can tell them that hurts you. But if you don't, then it's not worth taking on that energy because most likely that's about themselves and not you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to end it with.
Is there anything else? Is there anything else now that we've gone on for 3 hours?
I know, right? 3 hours.
I'm like, oh,
I know. Is there anything else you guys want to add? Because that's it. That's our episode today, guys. So next time we'll be here next time we do this weekly. So what next week?
Come with
I don't know.
snacks next time.
I think I had snacks here, but I don't want to be chomping. I'll turn my meat
I'm
on.
literally drinking my drink. I'm like, should I?
I think next time I might have a glass of wine.
Yeah, I'm like, next time
I'm thinking that is appropriate. It's Friday we record for everybody who's wondering. So I'm thinking that's appropriate. We'll do the wine time. Yes.
Friday afternoon, it'll be an interesting conversation.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere. So
Right.
thank you guys for tuning in, and you girls, love y'all.
Thank you. I love you guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye. 8 strangers on the internet coming together for intimate conversations about difficult topics with soft hearts and strong voices. This is Red Lips and Mic Drops.
Red lips and mic drops, thick hips and lip gloss. I'm talking issues and our thoughts. The world's unfair, so let's talk. Red lips and mic drops, thick hips and lip gloss. I'm talking issues and our thoughts. The world's unfair, so let's talk.